Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge and the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the 2021 Charles Schwab. This is my value plays. And really, this is everything that you need to know that I know to help you get the edge on your DFS lineups and to make your smart bets. I appreciate you greatly for stopping by. If you are already a subscriber, I appreciate you with your guys' loyalty and your feedback. There's a lot of options out there, as I mentioned to get your knowledge and that you stop by here. I greatly appreciate it. I'm going to make sure it's worth your while. Okay, so I'm going to go over the value plays. I'll talk about some guys that I'll be fading. I'll also talk about ownership. I'll talk about weather, everything you need to know. And to start up, I always kind of look if there's anything to update you guys on. It really is not a ton. The only thing that I think might be interesting is talk a little bit about Jordan Spieth. I think, as I've always stated, the guy that's the most expensive or also the worst odds from a betting perspective, I typically, I'm kind of off on. Jordan Spieth's a unique one here. He's had a ton of success here. He loves this course. Has been here a ton. Maybe he didn't come here and watch as much as like the Byron Nelson, but he still came here and would watch some of the pros. But long story short, we saw Jordan's putter way off at the PGA. He kind of mentioned that in his presser that it was a few different things, right? It was some stroke that he's working on as we speak, but he also stated that the reads, he just wasn't getting the reads and wasn't seeing some balls drop. So he has the confidence. He's going to a course where he's made a ton of long putts. He's had a lot of success on these greens. They're a lot flatter, and it's on bent grass. He's just more comfortable. I mean, if you think about Augusta on a bent grass, it's something that I think he's going to do well at. And he's someone that, I'm not going to put in a ton of my lineups because it's hard to build that way, but he will definitely be in some of my lineups. I'm not completely fading him. And also, if you just look at, we were talking about his success. So if you look at since 2010, his performance in Texas, and I pulled this actually just from some coverage on the TPC Craig Ranch when they were for the Byron Nelson. I thought it was an interesting little table. If you look at his score to par, 169 under when he plays in Texas, so first there. The number of rounds he's had in the 60s is 63, first in that category. Top 10 on the leaderboard 45 times. He's first there. Rounds of 5 under or better. He's had 21 of those. He's first there. And then total birdies, he's third at 486. So there's a lot of reasoning why, the betting odds and also even DraftKings has him as number one. Now, of course, who knows how that could all pan out. But I think, there's a good reason that you'll see Jordan up there, definitely challenged on the leaderboard at this event, and is, again, a decent play, even if, because I think there's some areas that you might be able to save and get some value, as we'll discuss. Okay, and then I also did this for for the Byron Nelson at TPC Craig Ranch, and I wanted to update it and just let you know again who's the guys, because typically when you go to Texas, it is relevant. There's guys that typically do very well here, and there's some things that I'll touch on. But probably the one guy, the main guy, is Patrick Reed, that was not at AT&T Byron Nelson. He's an event. He's a great putter. I think last I knew he was like top 3 rated. And, you don't have to be great off the tee here. Hence Phil Mickelson won here, I believe, back in 2008. You just, you can hit something smaller, something less than a driver. It's all about the approach. So just setting up the tee ball, not about the distance, about just, which angle you need to come in on these greens, because there's a lot of dog legs. So you're going to see guys that can also take advantage and maybe cut some corners that have the length, but you're also going to see guys, that's why anybody at this course can be successful. A lot like RBC is that, it's a guy that can hit the straight ball off the tee, and hit great approaches and make their putts. On that note, some of the guys to note, I bring up Ryan Palmer and Danny Lee, and 2 reasons. So Ryan Palmer is number 1 here, but he is a member at Colonial. This is for him his 5th major, he's stated. This is the course that his dad played at, ton of friends and family. This means the world to him. So a little bit like Max Homa at Riviera to win the Genesis, where he would go as a kid and watch the pros. This is the same thing for Ryan Palmer. So maybe that's hurt him a little bit in the past, but someone I think that could be very live here, and don't count him out. Again, at least top 5, top 10. And then you got Danny Lee, who I mentioned in the pick show, that, again, he's a member here. Maybe not in the best of form right now, but we look at some of the comparable courses, I think his only win was at Greenbrier, which is a very comparable course, par 70, less than 7,200 yards, bent grass, someone that could have success here. And we'll dive a little more into Danny Lee. But all the guys on here have either live in Texas, play college golf in Texas, but have Texas ties, and which ultimately means either they're sleeping in their own bed, which I call home cooking, or they're very comfortable and have probably played this course at some point. So just again, you got a list of names there that might be viable. Sergio Garcia, we'll look at him in the value plays because he's priced quite a bit low because of just recent miscuts. But yeah, let's move on from there. So guys that go low in Texas, kind of the same thing. This came from TPC Craig Ranch, and I just thought it was kind of an interesting little tidbit. Most rounds in the 60s in Texas since 2010. I just mentioned Ryan Palmer, 57 of them. You got Charlie Hoffman, who's done well here, even though he's San Diego born and actually lives in Vegas, like Kevin Na. But Kevin Na, just on a total side note, when I'm thinking of it, actually has tied the lowest round here ever, course record 61, and I believe Keith Clearwater also had a 61 here, and I think he's the cheapest guy on DraftKings. I don't know anything about him. I didn't look into him. I think he's just someone that was kind of maybe he's actually even won here way back. But anyways, total side, Matt Kuchar, again, who's shown some form, didn't have a good PGA Championship outing, but this course fits him, and if he plays the way Matt has been playing, could be very viable here. And of course, Jordan Spieth leads all these guys. And then lastly, I pulled this up to the right. This is a little bit older. I think it was like 2016, but I just thought it was kind of an interesting little table. And the guys highlighted in green are going to be, of course, in this field. But you got Zach Johnson, who's won here twice. You can see that here. He's had, 64 four times all around. He's actually got the lowest scoring average. Again, this is from 2016. Chris Kirk, also a past champion here in the field. He's had 2 top 10s. You got Spieth now, even Ian Poulter, which no one's really talking about, but he's done very well here. Again, all about approach and putting. And then I already mentioned Charlie Hoffman. So you can just see here their low rounds and how many times they did it. Even from, it could be from a showdown perspective, someone that you might want to think of. But yeah, just some viable names. And I've already picked Chris Kirk. So yeah. And then I threw this in here to remind me that let's go jump into ownership projections. We're going to go do the analysis on the guys that I like at the value side, and we'll also talk weather. All right, let me jump over to that. Okay, so jumping over into Fantasy National to look at the ownership projections. Again, this is where I do my research, and again, I highly recommend it if you are looking to do your own research. Got a ton of things that you can do. But yeah, we can just scroll through this. So right off the bat, Jordan Spieth comes in almost at 19%. So I guess that high price tag isn't scaring a lot of people off. Looks like JT would be your lowest ownership at the top. And if that putter gets going, he could be crazy live here. So somewhere to get differentiation. And Morikawa's up there is one of the highest, owned at 21%. Your next is Abe Answer. No shocker there, 19%. You got Corey Connors almost at 19%. Joaquin Niemann, who's really heated up with the putter, 16%. Charlie Hoffman, again, no shocker, 19%. He's had some, just with the recent success at the Valero, I think that's sticking in people's minds. Griot, great approach. It's all about the putter with Griot, but kind of funny, a lot of these, again, are some of my picks, which always bums me out a little bit. Chris Kirk, past success. And a lot of this also, I think people just look at past history at the course and say, hey, these are the guys that I'm interested. Harold Varner at 15% almost. And he's actually someone on a value play side that I'm going to talk about. I'm just seeing if anybody else below here has ownership. And typically, this number that we're looking at, just so you guys know, is pretty accurate, within about 1-2% either way when the final locks. We got here Vincent Whaley looking to be, so that's a guy 6,200, got a pretty high ownership. I would guess that's just how many cuts he's made. He's someone that I'm not really looking at down there. All right, a little smaller field as mentioned, about 120 golfers. Nothing else really I think is pertinent that I wanted to point out, just to give you guys an idea from an ownership perspective what's going on. All right, let's go jump into to the guys that I'm interested in. So as I typically do, I kind of work my way from 7,500 and below and go through the analysis and see which guys I like. And then, of course, I pick 5 of these guys. We're going to look at 11, but right now only 5 are highlighted that we're going to dive into. But I pick out guys that I think are also viable, and talk a little bit about that. Okay, so Sergio Garcia, Has had some success here. He also has a home here, so spends time between here and Europe, wherever the heck he lives there, probably Spain or something like that. But this miscuts here, he had 4 of them. But of course, he had that T9 at the Players. He had the win at the Sanderson Farms. But it has been hitting the ball real well, tee to green. It's all the putter does. And you can see this tournament, funny enough, some of this history doesn't get tracked. It's not going all the way down, but it's been named the Dean DeLuca, the Crown Plaza, you name it. This thing's had so many different names. Of course, now it's the Charles Schwab. So it's kind of funny, unless you go do your own digging, and I'm talking about just Fantasy National, it only goes so far back. But you can just see from 2011, he's had good success here. The guy, over the last 12 rounds, again, that's what we're looking at here, 12 rounds of data for this little model you see here. Has been good on approach, 17th against the field, good at the 125. Okay on par fours. The putter is already discussed, and you can see on bent grass over the last 24 rounds, he's negative against this field. But still, I think he's a viable play at that price tag. I mean, there were certain tournaments I know we were paying upper 8s, maybe low 9s, and projected ownership is lower. So again, if you're looking to, change it up a little bit, some differentiation, of course, what you're going to have to do. I think the entries for the $200,000 large GP, I think it's 58,000 entries. So you're going to have to differentiate. It's not like what we just went through at the PGA where it was 177,000 entries, but somewhat. You got Brandon Grace, who's been from a recent results, been playing pretty decent golf, and also has had some success here. You can see his putt, the putting's there, no problem there. From an approach side, he's decent. The driver, could be a little wayward, but again, these guys can hit 3 woods, 2 irons, any of those things to kind of mitigate that. But everything else, he's looking pretty solid. It does show that, Bermuda over the last 24 has been his best surface. Lost a little bit against the field on bent, but still a viable play. The first guy that I stumbled on that I was most interested in, which, you saw, I was kind of a little shocked, but the ownership projection is already over 10%, saying 12. I think it's even higher than that. He's had, a T9 here before, but I think what kind of piqued my interest is the best round that Harold Varner, I think, has ever had is this T2. He's never had a win on tour. Is this T2 at RBC, which is a very similar track and kind of the way you play it. And it kind of doesn't, where you would think Harold Varner would excel is longer, because he's actually pretty accurate and long off the tee and pretty good with the long kind of approaches. It's really the short game and the putter that's always held him back. And so we go jump in, and I actually didn't need to do that because I already had him pulled up. Let me see here. I believe it's this one here. Yeah, just to save us a little time. And what I actually did different here, usually you'll see this graph when I go over it. I changed it to strokes gain approach because that's the big thing I'm looking at. And you can see, on its way up, so that's a good thing. We can see at the PGA, he gained strokes on approach. And at the RBC, he gained strokes on approach. But this was the big difference. And this is what's rare with HV3, is that typically he does not gain strokes with the putter. You're almost kind of good if he's just even, usually with his ball striking. But you can see also gain at the Arnold Palmer. Now this is on Bermuda. This is on Bermuda. So, typically where he does gain, it's going to be on that. But if we look at some of the comparable courses, if I pull up RBC, of course, he had that second place out of nowhere because he had miscuts before that, a 59th and a 68. But, I think a lot of people are high on that, which, even is part of the why. But the Wyndham, which I think is a pretty good comparable course. I don't think it's the best, but I think it's pretty good. He had a 7th in 2020. So, he's had some success on a shorter, par 70 track. Again, that's Bermuda greens. We look at RSM, again, another shorter kind of course that fits. He's had a 23rd. That was back in 2018. We look at the Sony. He had a 13th, but that was back in 2016. But, recently a couple missed cuts. And then if we look at the Greenbrier, which I think is the best comparable course, which is the old white TPC course, par 70, very close in yardage. It is bent greens. They have some trees, kind of an older course. You had a 5th, you have a 19th. So some of those better finishes been there. And that was probably one of the bigger reasons for me that kind of resonated from at least a comparable course side. We look at OHL, again, similar kind of track. He's at a 6th, a 5th. some of his better finishes. So funny enough, where it seems like HV3 Harold Varner plays the best is shorter tracks that he has to navigate around, which if you know his game, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But I've seen this before. Even Jason Kokrak is kind of that similar where, you think of him as a bomber and a guy that, would take advantage of the bigger, longer tracks, and actually they do better on shorter tracks for whatever, at least from a results side. So, okay, so that was one of the first guys that I'm going to be focused on. You also got Russell Knox. I got pulled up here. You could see everything's green, everything that we're looking for. So he's ticking off a lot of boxes there. The putter is kind of hindering him, but, it's had solid recent results. Pretty good showing at the Byron, the Wells Fargo, the Valspar, and if you look at his past tournament history here, he's had a T8. He missed a cut recently, but that was also a better field, even better than what we have this time. But, a bunch of T20. So someone else that's very viable as a play down here at 7,300. So just another idea. Rory Sabatini, he's actually won this tournament, and it's not going to come up here. It was like back in, like 2009 or something like that. It was back when it was like the Crown Plaza, but it was on Colonial. It was a PGA event, and he did win it. It might be I don't know. I know Rory doesn't have a ton of wins, Sabatini. But anyways, it's old, but it's still, he's done it here. He's shown that he can win on this course. Again, if you look at his stroke gain approach, kind of flat line in here. So, nothing to be super excited about here. But at the Byron Nelson, he did gain strokes on approach. He did gain with the putter, different putting surface. But, it's good to see that. He gained at RBC on approach, gained on the putter at the Valero, quite a bit. So, he's had some decent form. He's actually a guy that I'll play in Showdown. He typically will have one pretty solid round. He's kind of a sneaky showdown play. So just, side note on that. And then if you look at the comparable courses that I was interested in, we look at RBC, it's had a lot of good success there. Of course, some of it's older, but even recently, you had a 21st, a 10th, 51st recently. But, that's one of the, I'd say, like I said, RBC and Greenbrier are the two that I think are the most representative from a total course, kind of how it plays. If we look at the Wyndham, he's had a ton of success there. Again, a good comparable course. If we look at the RSM, same thing. Had a 12th recently. So where Rory can, have some success, Sabatini. When I say Rory, I don't want you to think McIlroy. I'll just say Sabatini. When he gets on a shorter course, he can be viable. And there are some guys that are just that way. You look at the Sony, he's got a ton of history there. He's had a couple seconds there. A 6 as most recent, a 21st. He did miss the cut this year, but in past has done well. The Greenbrier, which I mentioned, I think is one of the better courses. He had a 9th, is a way back, a 14th in 2017, a 39th back in 2018. And OHL, you can see, his best was a 3rd. That's a while back, but made a lot of cuts there. And then lastly, the Travelers. A couple miscuts, most recent data, but, has had some success prior to that. So long story short, I like Rory Sabatini. I think from an ownership perspective, it's a little less for him too. So just could be a little unique there. Okay, Zach Johnson. Not a guy that I am a huge fan of. I think he's a good person. I just, I don't know why. He's just not my cup of tea to play. But the guy gains a ton on bent fairways. He's a putter extraordinaire. It's all going to be about what the approach is going on. You can see, red. So he doesn't tick all the boxes that I wish. His recent form has been a little sluggish, but he's had a ton of success here. And this course, when I think of this course, I think Zach Johnson, to be honest. I mean, it just everything you need to do. So let's go take a look. So I mentioned great on bent grass, can play in the wind a little bit. His approach has been still rising. Again, that strokes gain approach graph that we're looking at there. We look at some, he gained actually on approach at the PGA, but, just didn't make the cut. Wells Fargo, again, gained with the putter, gained at the putter at the Valspar. Probably his best showing, was at the Honda. So when you say, well, the guy has no recent form, I mean, the Honda wasn't that long ago, mid to late March, had a TA or an 8th place finish. So, and that's a way tougher track. Then he also had a nice string, not too far back. But let's just go look at his comparable courses and why I think he could be a good fit here. So again, we look at RBC's had a second there way back, but recently had a couple missed cuts, but he's also had some decent finishes. And if we look at the Wyndham, again, recently had a 7th, a 5th back in 2013, a 53rd in the middle of that. We look at the Sony, a lot of success there, a lot of, better than top 10s. He won it way back in 2009, but I mean, most recently he had a 62nd. Greenbrier played it once, had a miscut. OHL, he's had a couple 23rds and a miss. And then if we look at the Travelers, he had 11th, a 9th, a 6th. So, again, fits from a course form fit, looks good. Okay, the next guy I want to talk about is Brian Stewart, who actually played at Central Michigan. It's a college not too far from me. And you can see he's actually, from a model perspective, probably one of the better ranked players. So the model likes him. But we can also just look at recent results. Pretty solid. I mean, he had 18th at RBC Heritage. The Byron Nelson had a 39th at Wells Fargo. Someone, again, you can see ownership's low, but someone that he's also a streaky kind of, can have one good round. But you can see his tournament history here. Never missed a cut. Looks really solid there. If we go jump on some more specific information, you can see his strokes on approach. This is specifically approach gain. Looks good. He's gained the last couple of events with the approach. Gained at the RBC. The putter's been pretty good. And we go look at the comparable courses. The RBC, he's made the cut every time except his first time played it back in 2013. If we look at the Wyndham, I'd say 50% make cuts. Looks about right. Most recent was a 51st. If we look at the RSM, best finish was a 10th, but had a 50th recently. Let's go look at the Sony. Best finish was a 4th back in 2018. Last two wasn't great, but made the cut. But, has some success definitely at the Sony. Another good comparable course. Look at the Greenbrier. He had a 6th back in 2013, but a couple miscuts more recently. And we look at OHL. He had a 2nd back in 2013, a 9th. So some success on that course. Miscut recently. And then we go jump over the Travelers. A little less than half, but he had a 20th recently. But anyways, yeah, I like Brian Stewart. I think he could be one of the more sneaky plays down in here that could show up. And then my last guy that I'm going to talk about, well, I guess I should also talk. So these three guys I think are also viable. I looked at Rafa Cabrera. I think I mentioned him from a betting perspective, 250 to 1. Been great. It's positive, gaining over half stroke with the putter on bent. Great, was elite at one time on approach. Guy was a solid ball striker. And then, not sure, to be honest, my narrative with Rafa Cabrera is I think home life started to take precedence. He's got kids. He enjoys his, and I don't think he puts the time he used to into his practice. That's my own theory, because the guy, if you watch golf for a long time and knew RCB, the guy at one time was just elite. But his game's kind of tell. But you can see, he's had a T23 here in the past. Had it recently popped up, right? I think the first day leader at the Byron Nelson. I think that he's someone that you could definitely play and plug him in some of your DFS lineups to get a little differentiation, less than, like 2% own. Andrew Putnam's had success here before, a T3. Again, it comes down to guys that can just make a ton of putts. That's Andrew Putnam. And he's pretty solid on approach, gains on bent. Then Michael Thomas, just, kind of that plotter, plug around, could be very, very live here. And he's had some success at this event in the past. So three guys that you want to look at. But the guy that I'm, down here at 6,400 that I'm, again, key on. And I am a guy that, if you're going to your home course, the course that you belong to, you are going to have good feeling. You're going to know where to play shots. You're going to know the greens. Anybody that says course history is not viable or not something to look at heavily, just some, the weighting, between recent form and course history, it's all, there. I kind of look at them almost 50-50. I want guys with good recent form, but I also want guys that are going to a very comfortable track, know the putting. And if you're a member there and play there a ton, like, if you don't make the cut, then something went awry. And that's really what you're looking for out of Danny Lee. And he can also, this guy can get super streaky. He can get 3 birdies in a row. He can also go 3 or 4 bogeys in a row. So from that extra point standpoint, someone also to think about. So I like Danny Lee. And I have him pulled up if we want to go look at just some further information. So he's barely positive on bent over his history. Has been slowly gaining on the stroke gain approach. It's not his sweet spot, but you can see, at the Valspar he gained, the players he gained. It's been the putter that's kind of been holding him back. You can see off the tee, he does well. Approach is hit or miss. The putter is, probably more of the issue. But, if we go back and look at some history on the courses that I'm curious about, RBC, he's done okay. I give that an okay rating. The Wyndham, he's had 124th and a bunch of miscuts, so that's nothing to write home about it there. RSM, kind of a mixed bag of, some made cuts, some miscuts, but nothing to write home about there. Let's look at the Sony. So he's had a 13th, the miscut recently. So, again, nothing great there. Let's look at, the Greenbrier, as I already mentioned. So I think the best comparable course to this, he's actually got, and I believe it might be his only win, was back in 2015. He's at a 9th, a 16th, a 36th. So also something to think about when they get to that tournament, the military tribute at Greenbrier. Did I pull up OHL? Also OHL, he's had some success, a second, a third. A good comparable course. And then if we jump over the Travelers, he's at a third, a 15th. So success there. So kind of a mixed bag on the comparable courses, but the main two that I'm looking at is RBC and Greenbrier, and that's where his win was. So being his home course, sleeping in his own bed, good feelings there. I think Danny Lee can be sneaky, definitely at least from a betting perspective. But I think he's a great play down in there, especially if you're trying to put some guys with a little more cost at the top and you need to plug in a guy at the bottom. Okay, that's it from my value plays. Real quick while I'm here, I'm going to do weather, and then I'll summarize this up for you guys. Okay, so looking at Wind Finder here, again, recommend it, especially if you're playing, if you're a guy that just puts in Classic and just puts his lineups in, then you really don't have to worry about the forecast. But if you're doing Showdown, you got to be checking this all the time. Try to build your teams accordingly. It's going to give you a little bit of an edge for the people that don't think about it. But I'm using Fort Worth, of course, is the place that I'm pulling the information from. And we want to focus over here on Thursday, of course. And, it looks like they're going to have some wind Thursday. And it don't look like there's a real advantage. I mean, the morning, I guess, would be, if you get some guys in the morning, tee time, if you're doing Showdown, it would make sense. We go to Friday, pretty steady. It says here it could gust up to 17. And again, of course, you got to keep checking this. But again, there's going to be some rain at night, and which is going to soften the course up each day. So again, you can think about morning plays for that. Guys that can go out a little less wind. The greens are going to be more receptive. So as typically the afternoon goes on, the sun comes out, the wind gets up. It's going to dry them out to some degree. I think they're going to be very gettable greens. They're smaller, but with the moisture they've already had, and with seeing this rain each night, they could go lower than expected at this course. Let's just put it that way. But yeah, Saturday looks good. Nothing really crazy from a wind perspective. And then you can kind of see when it comes to Sunday, if this stays, the wind's kind of shifting and it's going east to west, is what this is showing. And again, nothing, I don't think a huge advantage either way on this. Is pretty steady. But just a change of wind direction, might be a little different. Looks like they were getting kind of a south wind the first 3 days, and maybe it changes here and comes out of the north later on. But yeah, so long story short, I always bring this up is just to give you guys an advantage if you are doing Showdown, and maybe you already know all this, but if you don't, you're new. People do check the weather. People build their lineups accordingly. So make sure you take advantage of that. Okay, let's jump over and wrap this up. Okay, so to summarize the value plays that I'm going with right off the bat, I mentioned Brian Stewart, local Central Michigan guy. Great game that fits this course. I think he could have a ton of success. So I like him. You get HV3, who's popped up at the shorter courses. Again, it's all going to come down. If he has a hot putter, he's going to do well. You got Rory Sabatini again. Fits this course, has had success, has won here a long time ago, over 10 years ago. But hey, when you haven't had a ton of wins and you're going back to a place that you have won, that's got to be a good feeling. Zach Johnson, of course, won here twice. Ton of success. Again, that was like back in 2012, 2011. You know, I think he can get super hot with a putter with that Seymour that he's still rocking. And so, yeah, we'll see how he fits. And then Danny Lee, the one of the members at this course, and could be one of your sneaky plays. Again, I still haven't heard him mentioned anywhere else. So, Danny Lee pops. You heard it here first. All right. That is going to wrap it up for the Charles Schwab. I appreciate you guys immensely for stopping by. I hope that gives you a little more insights and help and gives you a little more edge than maybe some of the other folks have because you stopped by here to listen to me. If you like how I do what I do, please click the like button. If you know anybody else that might like what I do, please share it with them. If you've not subscribed, again, I'm trying to get to 500. I'm only, I think, eight subscribers off. So you guys could be the ones to get me to the 500 mark. That would be greatly appreciated. Hit the subscribe button. And if you have not signed up yet for YouTube, you know, it's nothing. Again, I've mentioned this before. I was a guy that sat and took in a lot of the information and was not a subscriber of YouTube, and found out how important it was to just easily sign up, give an email address, and then be able to subscribe to these guys. It helps us who are doing this content. And then, of course, if I can help you, hit me up on YouTube comments. Or, you know, hit me up on Twitter. And like I said, probably check YouTube comments more, just so you guys know. I do go on Twitter a bit more during the tournament. And if anything comes out from a withdrawal perspective or anything, you know, I will tweet it. All right. All the best of luck to us. You guys have a great weekend. Enjoy the Charles Schwab Challenge. Let's see if we keep, you know, kind of with this theme lately of who knows. It could be anyone that wins. Maybe a Danny Lee. Because that just seems like the way it's been kind of running here with the Cage Lees and Phil Mickelson. So, all right, guys, take care. Best of luck.